Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Willpower Podcast. Today, I have a terrific guest. Her name is Haley. She stems from over the pond. So she's from England, right?
Yes, correct. I am
England.
English.
Okay. Haley, you're a life coach. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So thank you for having me, Will.
Of course.
So I'm a life coach. I studied to be a therapist for many years, and I decided to branch off into life coaching just because it's a lot more flexible and I can work with clients the way that I want to work with clients. So yeah, things can be tailored to their needs. Therapy can be quite constrictive. Yeah, so I'm called the Candid Life Coach. And as I mentioned to you earlier, some people find my methods quite unorthodox and quite shocking, but that's the
Yeah.
whole message I preach, about being real, raw, and authentic.
What exactly does a life coach do?
It's a great question, and it's one that comes through a lot. So, life coaching differs from therapy because we essentially create like a tailor-made bespoke package for our clients. So we will factor in so many different areas of their life. So career, physical, mental health, relationships, financial support. So kind of amalgamation of all of those things.
Mhm.
So you're really getting to know your client on a deeper level, and they can put forward ideas, goals, aspirations that they want to achieve. And then we essentially provide them with the tools and encouragement to kind of meet their goals, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. So when you are setting up that initial conversation that you have with one of your clients, give me an example of something that someone maybe has said that maybe they're reaching a little too high.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes, I mean, it's great to have dreams, but sometimes people's expectations within a certain time frame are unmanageable, and they're never going to meet that goal or obtain that achievement. For example, somebody may come forward and say, right, I'm 22 stone. I want to become a size 6 within a month. I want, and yeah, so of course you are honest and open with them, and you provide them with kind of a more manageable time frame or scale so that they know what to expect and they don't feel deflated when they don't get to where they want to be within 2 weeks.
So you're managing their expectations, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some success stories? Can you tell me a bit about a few?
Yes, sure. I worked with a wonderful gentleman earlier this year, actually, and he was going through some difficulties in his marriage. His key focus is he wanted to repair the rift with his wife. He wanted to focus on his physical health, so he did want to drop some weight and develop his sort of fitness and stamina. And yeah, he was a dream client. He really was. He took everything on board. He was so motivated and happy to, relay his successes with me. So every call we had, he'd be really excited. Haley, guess what? I did this and I've implemented this. And as a result, this is what I've achieved. So that was amazing. And especially for somebody of his age, he won't mind me sharing this, but he was 57. So some people, I think, are very impacted by societal milestones and expectations, right? So they think, oh, I've hit 30, I'm not married, I'm not at my dream weight, I'm not doing my career that I've wanted to, I've missed the boat or I'm a failure,
Yeah.
which isn't the case at all. Anybody can decide that they want change and they can grab it.
Yeah. I bet that happens a lot where people just want results right away. So Haley, this audience that you're speaking to right now on this channel either have some kind of addiction problem. I would say mainly alcohol. I'm curious when it comes to addiction and as a life coach, how often are you seeing alcohol being a part of why they're not succeeding? How much does alcohol play a part?
I would say it definitely contributes to,
Mhm.
a variety of issues, whether that's low self-esteem, poor physical health, toxic or abusive relationships. it can be the crux for a lot of these issues. I do work with clients overseas, but the majority of my clients are based in the UK. Here in the UK, drinking culture is huge. You cannot get away from it. Alcohol
Yeah.
is everywhere and it's associated with every single event, birthdays, funerals, celebrations, you know? So people do really battle with that temptation.
Yeah. From my own personal experience, it's low self-esteem. When you have low self-esteem, how do you build someone's self-esteem up?
Yeah, this is it's a process, that's for sure,
Yeah, because it
because
almost feels like you have to really get to know that person to find what their blind spots might be or what thing they need to work on.
yeah, spot on, Will. Exactly. So it's taking the time to get to know that person and to establish where the lack of self-esteem derived from, what need the alcohol was meeting. So some people may say, I get ever so shy and nervous. So if I'm dating, I'll have a few drinks beforehand just to sort of warm up. And then comes the regret and the shame of, I said the wrong thing, I did the wrong thing. And we're back in that cycle of like self-loathing and I'm an idiot and
Hmm.
I just can't get it right. So first and foremost, going back to your question of how to build confidence and self-esteem, number one is finding the root cause. Where did these insecurities come from? When did it stem from? And that can just help people understand themselves better, because a lot of people will come forward and say, I don't know. I don't know why I'm like this. I don't know why I'm like this. And then we do some digging together and we're like, oh, bingo. That's the ticket.
That's the ticket. When you're helping these people out, what do you find is the most successful thing that you do to help get these people's lives back on track?
I mean, every individual is different, so I cater to what works for them. So some people they will want an assertive coach. They want me to be disciplined with them. Whereas others who are perhaps more gentle in nature will want a sort of soothing, loving approach. They want me to kind of envelope them in praise and encouragement. So it really does depend on the person. But I would say this is just the feedback I receive.
Mhm.
A lot of people feel more at ease from seeing and hearing my own struggles. They can relate to that, or they can kind of eliminate that element of shame, because a lot of people carry shame when they seek support, whether it's therapy, coaching, or, going to a mental health charity. They feel embarrassed and they feel like they're a failure.
Thank you, Haley, for that nice lead into my next question was you just mentioned something about your own struggles. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what was your struggle? What was your story? I'm just really curious about what your story is.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, you said earlier that, most people on this channel have experienced some form of addiction. So, although I am sober and clients can gravitate to me because of that, if they're also sober curious or on a sobriety journey, that wasn't my addiction per se.
Mhm.
So, I actually had a serious sex addiction and it kind of took hold in my gears. It dominated that entire decade for me. Alcohol was something that would enhance that. So when alcohol was thrown into the mix, I was making incredibly poor decisions. I was reckless. I was constantly in a state of anxiety and depression. And just general self-loathing, seeking that validation from sex and from partners. That was kind of my route to intimacy.
You hear of sex addiction quite often, especially in the States. You hear it a lot. Um, uh, what does that feel like to not have control of something so intimate? I know it's a personal question right there. What emotions are you experiencing as that's happening?
Wow, I mean, a real roller coaster of emotions. I mean, I always say with any form of addiction, it's an attempt to meet an unmet need. So for me, this overwhelming feeling of being unlovable, not worthy, desperately craving some kind of affection or validation,
Mhm.
that was the key sort of catalyst in it all. But going back to what you said about what emotions were present, shame, self-hatred, regret, guilt, but also a lot of highs as well. Because, I was chasing this thrill, and when the dopamine hit, it was like, whoa, I'm on top of the world. And then shortly after, it would come crashing down again.
Yeah.
Um, and I would hate myself and think, why have I done this?
So it really is an addiction in the sense that it has all the same byproducts in feelings and emotions that alcohol or cocaine or you name the drug, right? That it all has that similar pattern that you just said. What was the turning point? When did you say, "Oh, I need to like stop this. This is becoming such an issue that I'm losing my identity, so to speak."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the turning point for me was 2020. So I think that we experienced the first sort of lockdown here. I think it was
Hmm.
maybe March, April 2020 off the top of my head. Um, and I'd gone through a series of, personal events that had led to some really tricky destinations, and I was contemplating ending my life. I was suicidal, and I thought, I cannot physically do this anymore. I cannot deal with the consequences and the aftermath of like my poor decisions based on this addiction.
Hmm.
So I was a key worker at the time. So for people that aren't familiar with what that means, a key worker in the UK was basically somebody that was in like the medical sector. So we were given free therapy to kind of navigate the pandemic. But when I was accessing this therapy, I came forward to my therapist and I confessed. I said, I've got a serious problem. I'm an addict. And naturally, she went to, oh, like drugs or drink. And I said, no, sex, men. I said, I cannot, shake this and I'm desperate for help. I've never told anyone this before. And my therapist was fantastic, completely non-judgmental, and she was firm but fair. And so,
Stuff you
she
do.
was assertive and she guided me. And yeah, I started the process of one, acknowledging it, and two, working towards repairing the issue.
Yeah. So how does one repair such an addiction as sex addiction? Do you start focusing on the importance of each relationship in particular? What are the steps?
So the first thing the therapist recommended to me was celibacy. So
Mhm.
she said, you need to go cold turkey. You cannot be entertaining, messaging, meeting up, and even hearing her words, her saying that, I was filled with panic because I immediately thought, I can't do that. I
Yeah.
cannot do that.
Yeah. Well,
And I
that's
thought,
it's tough.
I was setting me up to fail.
I'm curious about that journey,
I relapsed several times in the early days.
like most.
And so when I was working with my therapist, I had every intention of listening to her guidance and putting it all into practice. But my inner critic and my, I guess, vulnerable side caved in, and I went straight back to who I was previously. And it was interesting because when we would speak on the phone, she would know. She would just know. And she'd say to me, Haley, how was your week? And did you take what I said on board? Did you put this into practice? And, I'd kind of be deflecting, oh, like, and changing the subject. And she'd say, hold on, you're not telling me something. And I wanted to impress her, I wanted her to be proud of me and to think, well done, she's come out of the other side. But yeah, I really struggled. But as I kind of navigated the first couple of months, I learned how to love myself and how to be okay with my own company, which was completely new to me. I'd never been able to do that previously.
When did you start seeing success in this thing?
So I kind of, yeah, 2020 was a really transformative year for me. So, the healing and personal sort of evolution just continued to sort of happen organically. And I would actually document a lot of my own sort of, experiences, challenges on social media. I kind of had a bit of a break from my therapeutic training. And then people would just, message me and reflect and say, oh, I find your content really refreshing, or, I wish you could help me. And I want to kind of get to this stage. And yeah, it just sort of snowballed. And I realized that it was incredibly rewarding and I love doing it. So yeah, that's how it all came about.
Yeah, your sense of humor is so funny. Going through your page and the ways that you create your memes, being a life coach, very entertaining and super funny.
Think a lot of people want direction. So sometimes clients will say, tell me what to do, tell me what to do. And I always reaffirm, look, it's your life. You are steering the ship. You are completely in control. I can only provide reflections and practical, kind of tools and techniques, but I'm never going to say to you, I personally wouldn't do that, or don't go there, or don't do this, because we must all learn from our mistakes, right? Like pain
Yeah.
is a teacher. Of
It's the
course,
best, the
I
best
will.
teacher. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So of course I will be there. I'll be a shoulder to cry on when you need it, if you should need it. Equally, I'll be a cheerleader in your corner, to motivate you. But
Mhm.
I'm never going to dictate your journey. That's for you to navigate, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah. What's the expression? You can bring a horse to water, but you can't like, make it drink or something, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So Haley, you sent me something that I want to read back to you. I encourage my clients to embrace the beauty of expression, which in turn enables others to accept and appreciate who they really are. What does that mean?
So a common phrase I like to use is more expression, less suppression. So this kind of, to summarize, means staying true to yourself and not worrying about what people might think, who's judging, who's questioning, and just speaking from the heart and just staying true to you. Um, and I feel that well, similar to your experience, Will, I mean, you've spoken very openly about your situation and without trying to sound, how can I say this? You know,
Please say whatever.
you were at the brink of death. I
Yeah.
mean, that
Yeah.
was,
2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
yeah.
Certain death.
So that, having that situation, being presented with that situation and going through what you went through is, severe in terms of alcohol and sobriety. Some people who become sober don't have sort of life or death experience. They might have never kind of reached that point, if that makes sense. But everybody's story is still valuable. Sometimes clients will come to me and they'll say, "Oh, I feel a bit silly." And I say, "Why?" And they say, "Because, well, my life's not that bad, really, or I've not really been through too much. I haven't really had much trauma." And I say, "But it doesn't matter. We can't compare our own story to somebody else's, but we can appreciate the feelings and, really hone in on them. Like, it doesn't matter if people don't understand your story. It's kind of focusing on how you felt and what that experience did for you as a person. How did it impact you or change you?"
Yeah. So you call yourself the candid life coach, which is great. I love that. What makes you so candid?
Um, I think I don't put on any airs or graces. So I noticed when I was observing the kind of coaching field on social media, I immediately recognized that a lot of coaches, and I'm not digging them out, it's just an observation. They
Mm.
just kind of regurgitate the same surface level stuff. Whereas I like to go deep. I swear I talk very openly about my own fuck ups and mistakes and
Yeah.
who I've been, what I've done. And yeah, from feedback, some people say, "Oh, I couldn't believe that you came out and said that," or "I was so shocked to read your caption," or, and yeah, that's when my friends kind of put it forward and said, "You should be the candid coach."
Yeah. Well, that's good. I honestly think that's probably the best way to approach it, being so open and honest about it, because that's initially what these clients of yours are doing, are hopefully, they're becoming open and honest with who they are inside, right?
Yeah, exactly that. And, if I can't be honest with myself, how can I ever expect my clients to be honest too? It's a mutual relationship. And if we can't speak openly about, ourselves, our feelings, our thoughts, then we're never going to get to the core of what's going on.
Hmm. So you mentioned earlier about the people that you have coached. In your experience, what have you seen or noticed that people are looking to fix in their life? The bigger ones are.
The bigger, most common ones are relationships in a
Mhm.
romantic capacity, dating, being wounded from toxic or abusive relationships previously, wanting to find love. These are very common. A lot of people approach with that. And then secondly, I would say childhood issues. That's a biggie. Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
sometimes people will come to sessions with a completely different focal point, and they'll say, I want to kind of look at this. And when things unravel, it always goes back to childhood or parenting or absent parents.
9 times out of 10, it usually stems from childhood, right? Something going on in your past that you either didn't address, and now it's coming up in your life in a problematic
Mhm.
way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. So Haley, tell me a little bit about the hardest part about because I can only imagine, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're someone's life coach, how much time does that leave you if you're coaching other people's lives? I'm sure your time is eaten up because someone has an emergency and they need to get you. Where does the personal boundaries and the professional boundaries? Where do you draw the line, or when do you give yourself time?
So I always ensure that I don't have a full diary. And some small business owners would say, "What? That's insane." But given as you say, the nature of my work, it won't serve me well and it won't serve my clients well if I'm constantly taking on new people and, having very minimal breaks. I like to ensure that I only have like a maximum of 2 clients a day so that I do have ample time to go away, reflect, and focus on what it is that they want to achieve or what it is that they've brought to the session. And of course, sometimes it can be, emotionally testing. Sometimes people reveal things that break my heart, and I have to try and remain neutral whilst also being honest and open. So I won't hide my feelings. If I have a natural response, I'll speak about it and say, that's really moved me. Or as you can see, that's brought tears to my eyes, but please don't feel that you can't continue. I can hold the space for you. I'm just touched by what you shared. So yeah, it's super important to have boundaries, as you say, and to also ensure that away from the session, I gather myself and take the time to dedicate to self-care and, calming practices.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So without giving away too many of your tricks, could you walk me through what a consultation would look like? Maybe just some best tips or practical advice you could give to, without obviously giving away all your stuff, right? I mean, that's your business.
I'm
That's
not
your
a gatekeeper at all. I'm always happy to share information. I think it's important. So yeah, so okay, so what I would generally do is have like a 20-30 minute chat on a discovery call where sometimes people initially when they start the call they're like, oh, I don't really know what to say. And then 10 minutes in, we're snowballing and it's all coming out. And then if we decide that we're a good fit with one another and we think, we kind of match each other's energy and we'll work well together, then we'll start to develop a plan based on their kind of wishes and wants. So I will encourage the client to tell me, okay, what is it that you really want to focus on? What is a barrier or an obstruction in your life right now? Um, who inspires you? If you could tell me somebody that you look up to, what characteristics do they possess that make you think, yeah, I'd like to develop those in myself. And then, yeah, then we'll look at all the kind of areas. So love life, family dynamics, career, physical and mental health. And I'll ask them to provide me with their schedule, their weekly schedule too, because it's really important for me to see where they have gaps, where they're experiencing burnout, how we can create a routine that works and serves them.
you just mapped it out for us. If you could, is there any free advice that you typically will share with people that you notice has worked in the past?
Yeah, so I mean, really simple things, and sometimes I guess we consider them to be basics, but they're not always common knowledge to people. So
Okay.
things like accessing sunlight, so going out and getting sunlight exposure, increasing your exercise levels throughout the week, eating nutritious and delicious foods, so your diet can play such a big part in your mood and your motivation and changing your environment as well. So I had a lady before who, within like the first 10 minutes of us chatting, I said, "May I interject?" And she was like, "Yes." And I said, "I know what the problem is." And she was like, "What is it?" I said, "It's your environment." I said, "It's your work environment. It does not suit your personality." I said, "If you leave that job," I said, "everything will change." I said, "That black cloud will lift." And it did. And she came back to me a couple of weeks later and said, "Well, Haley, yeah, I handed in my resignation. I've got this new job. Like, God, I feel like a totally different person." I was like, yeah, makes sense. Because she was a very creative, outgoing person, and she'd kind of somehow got navigated into like an office setting at work where they were restructuring and rebranding. And it didn't suit her and her personality type. So, she was naturally feeling restricted, claustrophobic, unmotivated. And yeah, the change of scenery did her the world of good.
Yeah,
So,
that makes a lot of sense. When you change your environment and the people that you're around, going through those same emotions day after day after day, they can weigh on you. What typically is the age that you see the highest need? Like what age and what demographic do you see expressing the most need for a change in their life and needing a coach?
this is something that I actually keep tabs on,
Yeah.
just for personal use and to help me develop my skills. So people that come through 30s to 40s, absolutely. That's the general consensus age bracket.
Hmm.
People making inquiries, 20s, teens and 20s, they'll make inquiries, will chat, will sort of develop a sort of relationship over DMs, but they don't book in for sessions. They haven't taken that leap just yet.
Hmm.
Whereas people in their 30s and 40s, I think, have got to a point where they're like, yeah, something needs to give. Like, I can't continue this way. I'm going to go for it. And then gender wise, um, it's a mixture. I'd say I have more female clients than male. But again, males are more forthcoming when DMing and exchanging emails. So they tend to take a lot longer to actually commit to sessions, which is interesting. They like to build comfort and rapport first.
I wonder why that is. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that they're a little more refrained from being so open or honest or direct with
I
it?
think naturally women are more expressive when it comes to, emotions and concerns. With women, they will confide in their best friend and say, "Oh, this has happened, and let me tell you about this." Whereas guys tend to have this armor and, I'm a man and I can't show my emotions, or I'm a father, I'm a husband, so I should naturally be strong and not be moaning about X, Y, and Z. So there's like that resistance to kind of admitting I'm struggling.
Yeah, it's hard to be vulnerable or open with someone that you're just getting to know, right?
Yeah.
Y- Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something I have noticed. And some male clients have shared that with me and said, "Oh, I was incredibly nervous about our first session." And I say, "Oh, but we spoke on the phone and we've been exchanging messages." And they say, "Yeah, I know, it's crazy, but I was just so, I don't know, I felt so worried about it." So
This is a question just popped in my head. For some of your male clients that are married, how does their partner typically react to them getting a female life coach?
think, again, just speaking from feedback I've received, a lot of them they haven't shared with their partners what's going on. So when I say, do you have someone supportive at home, or is somebody aware of what you're going through? They'll often say, "No, my wife isn't aware of how I'm feeling," or "I don't discuss it at home." So
Yeah,
they've literally bottled everything up.
that's that's really intriguing. That they're not telling their wives that they're trying to better themselves. You would think that in a healthy relationship that your life mate would be open to any kind of help, self help when it comes to
Yeah.
whatever, does male, female, who cares, right? I don't want to take too much of your time. For anyone who's listening to this, watching this, and they're struggling, do you have any advice to them or any kind of closing words or remarks, generally speaking, of course, that you would want to leave them with? Or
I would just, yeah, like to kind of reiterate what I've kind of share a lot. There is so much power in sharing your story, and there will always be, as I'm sure you're aware, Will, especially in the sober community,
yeah,
there will always be an influx of people that love you for you, that are rooting for you, that are going to celebrate your successes, but also scoop you up when you have your lows as well. So never fear being real, raw, and authentic. It truly is so liberating. I think I spent so many years, consumed by worry of, will people think? What will people say? But actually, when I took the leap and I found my courage and my voice, everything worked out for me. So just go for it.
Okay, you heard it. Just be honest with yourself and be open and truthful to admitting that you're struggling and then you need help. There's no shame in saying that you need help. It's the very first step in the journey to peace and happiness, I would say.
Absolutely. I echo that, Will. You summarized it beautifully. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So Haley, where can people find you if they're
I am
want to
just,
reach out?
it is just at the Candid Life Coach on Instagram. Yeah. So they can find me there, and everyone is very welcome on that page. I pride myself on making it inclusive. So no matter where you're from, who you are, what you've done, you're all welcome.
It's also very, very funny. So check it out too. There's a lot of good
Well,
ones. Yeah, there's a
I'm
lot of
glad to
lot,
hear
lot of
it.
ones that I haven't seen that you took and then you made it into your own voice, which is what initially sparked my interest in you. It was like, who is this person? Why are they creating all these wonderful, funny memes that are
Oh,
so uniquely her? So
oh,
that's
amazing.
great.
Thank
Well,
you. I
yeah,
think, yeah, humor can be
huge.
a great outlet for people too, because, how often do we try and mask our pain with humor, right? So
Oh yeah,
if we can have a laugh at our own expense, then that's all good fun.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Haley, for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the audience does as well. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode and look for more coming soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you so much, Will. Have a lovely weekend.
You too. You too. Bye bye.